Jed here with another installment of the Hammer Down Breakdown following Purdue's overtime win. As you can see from behind me, 105-96 over the visiting Northwestern Wildcats. Another absolutely thrilling game against a team that is quickly becoming a very big thorn in the side of a top-ranked Purdue squad. Obviously, losing last year at Northwestern as the number one team, and then early again this year in that first installment of the Big Ten games up at Northwestern again as the number one team again, and then tonight as the second-ranked team in the country, escaping in overtime. A couple of things to note and to take away from this game. This is another one of those games where you have to understand that as the preeminent Big Ten program in basketball for the better part of a decade at this point, you're going to be getting every team's absolute best shot. And that is exactly what you got from Northwestern tonight. You're talking about a team that, shot, 60 some odd percent in the first half and really continued that hot shooting throughout the entire game. Finishing, if I had to guess, I think they finished the game 57.5% from the field, 52%, 51.9, 52% from behind the arc, 14-27. So, as Purdue found out tonight, a team that has a bunch of shooters can put them in bad situations. And the way that Purdue was covering, especially the high, ball screen action, really put them at a disadvantage with Edey's sort of deep drop coverage. And, all too often Northwestern was able to get 2 feet into the paint and get kickouts and get good looks, or were able to kind of hit some difficult shots. And that's kind of the story, right? In some games, Purdue, like against Michigan here, Michigan shoots terribly from three, and Purdue, blows the doors off of them. And in this one, if Northwestern, misses 5 threes, 4 threes, and they only hit, 6 or 7, it's a totally different game, and Purdue wins by 15 or 16 or 17 points tonight. But credit to the Boilermakers. Matt Painter has talked frequently, especially about this team and last year's team, about when, what are you going to do when an opposing team is on a heater like this, and staying the course and just kind of continuing to grind away and do the things that you need to do to win. Purdue was able to out-rebound Northwestern again, 36-22. And probably the biggest key that kept Purdue in this game really was, they only turned the ball over 10 times. And of those 10 turnovers, 3 came after the first half. Purdue turned the ball over 7 times in the first half, 3 turnovers in the second half, and overtime included. Braden Smith with 2 in the entire game. If you're going to get games like that from Braden Smith, who also very nearly broke the single game assist record held by Bruce Parkinson, who had 18 in 1974 and 1975 against Minnesota, Braden Smith gets 16. And coming off just a day removed from being left off of the Bob Cousy, nation's best point guard list, I think he makes a statement tonight, right? Obviously, 16 assists, 11 points, 2 turnovers, an 8-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Show me a better point guard left off of that list. You can't. If there's 10 guys better than him at the point guard position, honestly, show me. Matt Painter jokingly said in the post game presser, if you think that there's 10 point guards better than him in the country, then come coach in the Big Ten because we're assured 2 wins every single year. It's just leaving him off of that list was blatantly horrible before tonight's game. After tonight's game, it's an atrocious look. And quite frankly, the award probably would be best served to add him as an 11th to this final watch list, to be honest. Outside of Smith's wonderful and sort of maestro performance there at the point guard position, you had Zach Edey going for another 30 and 15, although the big man for the first time this year really struggled from the free throw line, going just 8 of 17. And, Chris Collins did pretty plainly say, if Zach hits his free throws the way that he typically does, the game is decided, much earlier. And Purdue's struggles overall from the free throw line really kept the Wildcats in the game. We kind of got a lipstick on a pig there at the end with Mason Gillis getting 4 made free throws, thanks in large part to Chris Collins absolutely losing his mind at the end of the game with a second left on the clock, and then Bubui getting a technical foul as well because of his frustration. And he goes 4 for 4. And you also had Lance Jones going 5 for 6 near the end of the game in overtime. And so going 9 of 10 there really in the last couple minutes of overtime really puts kind of a lipstick on the pig where Purdue went 29 of 46. So prior to those 10 free throws, Purdue was just 20 of 36. That's really bad. I mean, that's bad. And even 29, even getting those 9 of 10, they're still 29 of 46 on the game. 63%. And I know that that's not a terrible look, but, for a team that shoots 72%, for, a free throw shooter like Zach Edey, who's been 75% on the season, Braden Smith, who's 80 some odd percent or better, misses 2 in a row. Trey Kaufman-Renn struggling from the free throw line, missing numerous front ends of 1-and-1s, which, really should count as 2 misses. That's really kind of the sore spot in the game. You're able to generate 46 free throw attempts for yourself and you convert 29. That's a glaringly bad part of the game. But once again, credit to Purdue. When things were not going their way, they kept sort of going to what they knew, kept going to what they knew that they could get. And there finally at the end were able to kind of get over the hump there and get the ball into some guys' hands that could hit some free throws. Outside of Smith and Edey, you have Lance Jones going for 26 points tonight and really hit some big shots again. He is becoming a player who Purdue is clearly going to in big moments when they need a shot. And he hit 3 really big threes. He went 5 of 7 from behind the arc tonight, but hit 3 really, really, really big 3-pointers, especially there in the second half on his way to 26 points. But probably the biggest shot, maybe so far of the season for Purdue, was probably that Fletcher Lawyer 3 in overtime with about 32 seconds left. And in fact, so big, it set the Mackey decibel record. I think it was 124.3 is what the Purdue account tweeted out, 124.3 decibels. It's a massive shot, and he is becoming, big shot Fletch. I mean, he is getting a reputation that when the moment is big, the moment's not too big for him. He hit a big time 3 against Ohio State last year on the road as a true freshman. He's hit numerous other big time shots for the Boilermakers in just two years. And this one was a massive one that was able to push Purdue's lead there in overtime from 3 to 6. Something that I think bears mentioning here is Matt Painter really looking to alter the flow of the game even in the first half. I don't know if I've ever seen Matt Painter go to an offensive and defensive trade bringing Ethan Morton in and Fletcher Lawyer out with 7 minutes left in the first half. And it was kind of one of those moments where I saw that and I was like, oh, substitute. And then Lawyer gets substitute right back in. And eyes got kind of big there. I'd never seen Matt Painter feel like he had to go an offensive defensive switch. And it was a lot of times the actions that Northwestern was running was just really giving all of Purdue's defense a fit, but really kind of Lawyer was really struggling with being able to, get through some of those actions off the ball. And Matt Painter just felt like he needed some more defensive help there on the floor. And in fact, at one time, I believe we had Smith, Lawyer. No, I'm sorry. We might have had Smith, Heidi, Morton, Gillis, and Edie in there at the same time. And that's a grouping that, and it might not have been Smith, it might have been Jones, but it was definitely one where you kind of looked and like, oh, they're really trying to go for some defensive stops here because Northwestern was very clearly on a heater tonight. And so for a lot of people that, I've seen on Twitter, Matt Painter doesn't make adjustments and he's a this and that. And this was a game where Matt Painter was making adjustments in game and he was messing with lineups and he was trying to find something that could work. And it's just some of those games where it's no matter what you do, the opposing team is going to counterpunch. And, Purdue counterpunched, as best as they could. And they came out on top tonight. One thing I do want to mention, watching a ton of college basketball as I do, and as many of you probably do as well, the antics on the sideline from a head coach gets old really, really quick. And Purdue fans poke fun, at Fran McCaffrey with the Frantrum meter. You see obviously Tom Izzo, and you see coaches all around the country with these huge, massive antics on the sideline and stomping their feet and whatever. And I know Purdue fans love Gene Katie's fire and his passion and all that kind of stuff. But seeing a head coach from a Big Ten team blow up the way that Chris Collins did, stepping onto the floor with time remaining in a game, should make you appreciate the way that Matt Painter holds himself while on the sideline, even when things aren't going his way. And I know early on in his career, there's a bunch of fire there, and that's okay. And I know there's a lot of people that, I wish Matt Painter would yell and scream and stomp and he would fire up. I'm sorry, I'm not one of those in that camp. And to see the absolute nuclear meltdown, I don't think I've ever seen a coach have that level of a meltdown, especially in person. Makes me appreciate the steadiness that Matt Painter brings to the sidelines at Purdue University. It's nice to know I'm never going to be embarrassed for the program that I root for and the program that I cover based on the antics of a head coach. And so I hope a lot of you, as you're kind of known, those ainters out there, those Matt Painter detractors, take a look at that and take a look in the mirror a little bit and say, you know what, I may not like him. I may not agree with him. The first round exits, the losing to a 16 seed and losing to this, losing to that. I get that. But at the end of the day, your coach is Matt Painter, and he's not going to make a fool of himself like that happened today. I'm sorry. Chris Collins looked like an absolute fool out there. And I hope the Big Ten, does something about that. You can't step on the floor like that as a head coach. This comes a year after he, reaches out and grabs Fletcher Lawyer on the jersey. And I probably don't like the guy already enough for that, but that's all I'm going to say on that. He looked like a complete fool, and I'm really thankful that Matt Painter is the head coach of the program that I root for and that I cover. Looking forward, Purdue has probably the biggest game of the Big Ten schedule. This is, very well could determine the Big Ten regular season championship as they travel to Wisconsin at 1 o'clock on Sunday. That is going to be a top 10 matchup. and very well could determine if Wisconsin sort of takes that next step this season, and are they going to be in contention for a potential 1 seed? The Big Ten is very, very top heavy this year, and there's not very many statement wins that another top program like Wisconsin can make and move up the seed line. There's just not many there for them. And they've got 2 golden opportunities left this season against Purdue. And the first one comes Sunday. And if they want to be considered as a potential 1 seed, which they very well could be, if they beat Purdue on Sunday, they're going to move up in the rankings. They'll probably be a top 5 team. I mean, there have to be. I mean, you've got to start looking at Wisconsin as a potential 1-2 seed, especially if they beat Purdue, and especially if they beat Purdue twice this season. And Wisconsin's going to come out and play knowing that. And so it's going to be an absolute grinder of a game. Wisconsin's, got 2 big guys that can really shoot the ball well. 2 of the better shooting big men in the country. Zach Edey is going to be really tested out on the perimeter, but at the same time, Wisconsin doesn't have anybody to really defend Edey one-on-one, and it's going to come down to, does Zach Edey get the support that he got like he did tonight? Again, Lance Jones, 26. Mason Gillis, 14. Braden Smith, 16 assists, 11 points. Fletcher Lawyer getting a number of points as well tonight. So don't forget, keep following along on hammerandrails.com for all of our Purdue men's basketball and Purdue women's basketball coverage. Spring football is right around the corner, so make sure you stay clocked in on that on hammerandrails.com.